Hello and welcome everyone to my channel Excel in English. In this video, we are going to discuss some of the most essential elements of sentence structure in English grammar, like the different types of subjects, the idea of a dummy subject, the key parts of a predicate, and the difference between a complement and an adjunct. আচ্ছা, একটা কথা এখানে বলে নিই, যেহেতু এই ভিডিওটা স্পেশালি SLST ইন্টারভিউ এর জন্য, আর ইন্টারভিউতে সাবজেক্ট এক্সপার্ট কিন্তু ইংলিশেই প্রশ্ন করবেন, সেই সম্ভাবনাই বেশি, আর তাই উত্তরও ইংলিশেই দিতে হবে। সেই কারণে আজকের ভিডিওর এক্সপ্লানেশনও আমি বেশিরভাগ ইংলিশেই করব, জাস্ট টু হেল্প ইউ ইন ইউর প্রিপারেশন। বেশ, এই যে আমি টার্মস গুলো বললাম, ডামি সাবজেক্ট, অ্যাডজাঙ্ক্ট, এগুলো কিন্তু শুধুমাত্র grammatical terms নয়. These are the building blocks that help us to understand how a sentence is formed and how it functions. So questions based on these concepts are very common in interviews as well as in written exams. Let's now go through some such questions. How does a simple subject differ from a complete subject structurally? Can you explain the concept of a dummy subject and discuss its functional necessity in English syntax? Is the word calm in the sentence "she remained calm" a predicate nominative or a predicate adjective? Justify your answer. What is the difference between a complement and an adjunct in a sentence? Now, if any of these questions made you pause for a moment, don't worry, because by the end of this video, you will not only answer these questions, but can also confidently explain the logic behind them. So let's begin now. The first thing that we are going to see today is types of subjects. We all know what is a subject. The subject of a sentence is the person or thing doing the action or being described. Like Neha ate the cake, Neha is angry. Here Neha is the subject. কিন্তু যেটা অনেক সময় আমরা ভুলে যাই, সেটা হলো the three basic types of subjects in English grammar. First, the simple subject. It is the main noun or pronoun that performs the action or is described. অর্থাৎ এটা হচ্ছে একটি প্রধান বিশেষ্য বা সর্বনাম যা কাজটি করছে অথবা যাকে নিয়ে কথা বলা হচ্ছে। So it's the bare minimum required in any sentence. For example, in this sentence, birds fly. Birds, it is the simple subject because it is doing the action of flying. Next, the complete subject. It is the simple subject plus all the words that describe or modify it, that is adjectives, phrases, clauses. অর্থাৎ একটা সিম্পল সাবজেক্ট এবং তার সাথে থাকা মডিফায়ারের দল মিলে একটা কমপ্লিট সাবজেক্ট তৈরি করে। For example, the little birds fly in the sky. Here, the entire noun phrase, that is the little birds, it is the complete subject because the and little, these words describe the simple subject birds. Finally, the third type, that is compound subject. It is two or more simple subjects joined by a coordinating conjunction, usually and or. For example, in this sentence, birds and butterflies fly. It is an example of a compound subject because we have two simple subjects here, that is birds and butterflies. These two subjects are joined by a coordinating conjunction and. They also share the same verb fly. And now, before we move on, take a look at the question below. The beautiful old house needs painting. Can you identify the type of subject here? Yes, the beautiful old house is the complete subject because it includes the noun house, that is the simple subject, and all the describing words, the beautiful old, before it. Now let's look at something very interesting, the concept of dummy subject. It is also known as a dummy pronoun, expletive subject, empty subject, or artificial subject. If you are asked to explain any of these terms, the answer will be a dummy subject, also called an empty or expletive subject, is a grammatical subject that does not have real meaning or reference, but is used to fill the subject position to make a sentence structurally complete. তার মানে হলো ডামি সাবজেক্ট হলো এমন একটা গ্রামাটিক্যাল সাবজেক্ট যার নিজের কোনো অর্থ থাকে না বা কোনো রিয়েল পার্সন অবজেক্ট আর আইডিয়াকে এটা রেফার করে না। এটা শুধু বাক্যে সাবজেক্টের জায়গাটা পূরণ করে যাতে বাক্যটা গঠনগতভাবে সম্পূর্ণ হয়। Come to the examples. Think about it in this sentence. It is raining. Here, the pronoun it does not refer to any person or a thing. It has no real reference. The same goes with there. In the sentence, there is a book on the table. Here, the pronoun there simply acts to introduce the existence of the book. Here, the real subject is actually a book. And that brings us to an important question which can be asked: why it's called dummy or empty? The answer will be because it acts just as a placeholder and doesn't refer to any real person, thing, or idea. It only performs a grammatical function, not a semantic one. So these dummy subjects, these are only grammatical fillers. They perform only the function to keep the sentence structure balanced. They don't have any semantic function. শুধুমাত্র আমাদের বাক্যগুলিকে সোজাভাবে দাঁড়াতে সাহায্য করে, কিন্তু কোনো সেমান্টিক বা অর্থগত কোনো কাজ করে না, তাই এদের ডামি বলা হয়। Now let's move to the other half of the sentence, that is the predicate. What is a predicate? We all know this definition. The predicate is the part of a sentence that tells something about the subject, usually containing the verb, which is simple predicate, and its complements or modifiers, which is complete predicate. So in simple words, if the subject tells us who or what the sentence is about, the predicate tells us what happens or what is said about that subject. Okay, when we talk about the structure of predicates, we often mention two common terms, that is simple predicate and complete predicate. Now, simple predicate is just the main verb or the verb phrase that shows the action or the state of the subject. For example, the girl laughed. Here, laughed is the simple predicate, only the verb. But a complete predicate includes not just the verb, but everything that tells more about the verb. That means the verb, it complements, and also the modifiers. For example, say another sentence: the girl laughed loudly at the joke. Here, laughed loudly at the joke is the complete predicate because it gives full information about what the girl did and how she did it. Okay, now that we have formed a complete concept about predicate, let's move on to another interesting kind, the compound predicate. It's actually when a single subject decides to be very busy and performs two or more actions, then a compound predicate is formed. We can define it as a single subject performs two or more actions joined by a coordinating conjunction. Coordinating conjunctions are and, or, but. For example, the runner tripped, recovered quickly, and finished the race. Here we see one subject, the runner, but three verbs: tripped, recovered, and finished. So one subject and multiple actions, that give us a compound predicate. This particular structure is very useful for showing sequential actions without repeating the subject. এবার আমরা দেখে নেব প্রেডিকেটের আর একটা ইম্পর্টেন্ট কম্পোনেন্ট which is subject complements. Subject complements refer to those words that follow a linking verb like be, seem, appear, feel, taste and rename or describe the subject. In simple words, it helps to complete the meaning of the subject by telling who or what the subject is or how the subject is. We have two main types. First is predicate nominative. It is simply a noun or pronoun that appears after the linking verb. Its function is to rename or identify the subject. That is, it states what or who the subject is. Look at this example. My sister is a doctor. Here the linking verb is. So it connects my sister to a doctor and the word doctor renames the subject my sister. So doctor is a predicate nominative. In contrast, predicate adjective is an adjective that appears after the linking verb, of course. Its function is to describe or modify the subject. Our example, the music sounds beautiful. Here the linking verb sounds. It connects music to beautiful. The word beautiful describes the subject music. So beautiful is the predicate adjective. So remember, both predicate nominative and predicate adjective always follow linking verbs, not action verbs, linking verbs, and they complete the meaning and idea of the subject. So that's why they are called subject complements. Now let's understand one of the most common confusions, which is complement versus adjunct. First, what is a complement? Complement is a word, phrase or clause that is necessary to complete the meaning of a given sentence. It is structurally indispensable, meaning you must have it. Why? Because it is necessary to complete the core meaning of the main verb or another element in the sentence. If you remove this complement, the sentence becomes ungrammatical or simply nonsensical. Look at the example, he wanted a new car. Now, if I just say he wanted, the meaning remains incomplete. The phrase a new car is required here. It is the complement because it completes the idea of what he wanted. So it is indispensable. On the other hand, an adjunct is a word, phrase, or clause that adds extra information about something in a sentence. It is structurally dispensable, which means it can be removed without affecting the basic grammatical meaning or sense of the sentence. That means the sentence can still make sense without it. In our example, he wanted a new car for his birthday. The phrase for his birthday is the adjunct. If I remove it, the core message, that is he wanted a new car, it remains perfectly complete and grammatical. So remember this key difference. A complement is structurally necessary, an adjunct is optional. It's just an add-on. That's why we say that complement gives the core meaning and adjunct gives extra meaning or extra information. বেশ, এর সাথেই আজকের ভিডিও এখানে শেষ করছি। আশা করি সেই প্রথমের সবকটি প্রশ্নের উত্তর এবার অবশ্যই দিতে পারবে। If you still have any doubt, please comment. Keep learning, keep revising, and keep preparing brilliantly. Thank you for watching.